The old man fell first, not from a bullet nor from sickness, but from the slow, cruel weakening of hunger that took the knees before it took the breath. His name had been Silas Brewer. He was 73. 2 days before, he had still managed to crack jokes about ox dung and play the harmonica while his ribs poked like coat hangers beneath his shirt. But that morning, when the frost hadn't yet lifted off the wagon tarps and the air felt like it had teeth, Silas had simply slumped sideways off the rear of the Murphy wagon where he'd sat to rest. He hit the packed earth with a dull, wet sound that told everyone, without any words at all, that something inside had broken. Sarah Kent was the first to reach him. She had been tying down a canvas flap and heard the thud. Heard someone gasp, then a cry, then no sound at all. She ran before she even thought to call out. She didn't shout, didn't hope. She just knelt there beside the old man's still warm body, her fingers trembling as she touched the pulse point in his neck. And when she looked up, half numb, half expecting someone older to step in, it was all eyes on her, hollow, sunken faces, some afraid, some already looking away, some thinking, it'll be me next. They had gone too long without meat. The salted pork barrels were scraped clean, the sacks of flour now nothing but white ghosts of dust at the bottom. And the wild game? It had vanished like smoke before their eyes, driven off by earlier hunting parties or spooked by their stinking trail of dung, grease and sorrow. They were 3 weeks behind schedule, crossing the pass. Snow had already kissed the high ridges in the night. If the cold didn't kill them, hunger would. If neither did, the land might. "Don't look," Sarah said gently to the brewer boy, Tommy, who was maybe 9, maybe 10. "Go to your mother." She didn't look as she said it, didn't need to. Tommy was breathing through his mouth, trying not to cry. His little fists were clenched, like he could squeeze the grief out of them. And that's when the whispering started. Not prayers, not mourning words, no, whispering about her. Again, she shouldn't be out there with a rifle anyhow. Wouldn't listen when the men told her, now she'll go get herself killed like her pa. Think she can just pick up hunting like it's sewing? The words stuck in the air like gnats. Sarah didn't flinch. She didn't need to. She'd heard them for weeks. Ever since her father died 3 months back in a river crossing gone wrong. Snapped neck, washed down the current, rifle gone, wagon lost, everything gone. She had stepped into the silence he left behind. She had taken his spot behind the wagon train, scouting the gullies, not because she wanted to, because she had to, because her mother had no strength left in her spine, and her younger siblings had bones too soft for the work. Her first few days hunting had yielded nothing. Then came a rabbit, then a bird, then a fox too mangy for good eating. But something was something, and that something gave her just enough hope to keep going, just enough to keep taking the ridicule, the doubt, the stares from the men who thought rifles were carved for their hands only. She never argued. She just listened and walked farther each time, climbed higher, waited longer, watched closer. She studied the tracks, learned the wind's curve, followed the shadows where prey might drink at dusk. But in the last 10 days, nothing. Not a single shot fired, not a hoof print worth following. The land had closed its mouth. That night, after Silas was buried shallow in the cold earth with a prayer that felt more like apology than tribute, the elders held council by firelight. Only 5 men, weathered, worn, men who had voted on which wagons to burn when the axle broke, which horses to put down when the grass ran dry. Now they voted again. Who gets how much water? Who eats? Who doesn't? Sarah sat back by her family's wagon, listening. She was not invited, but everyone knew they were talking about her. She'd used the last of the black powder trying to line up a shot at what turned out to be a stump. Her father's Hawken rifle, his pride, his legacy, now leaned against her lap like a thing made useless by her failure. Her mother said nothing, just shivered beneath 3 blankets and stared into the dark. "They'll send someone else to hunt," her mother said, voice hoarse from days of no meat. "They always do." "No one else is going," Sarah replied. "They don't have the legs for it." Her mother looked at her for a long time. No anger, just tiredness. "You don't either." Sarah didn't answer. She just stood, took the Hawken, checked it again. The patch and ball were clean. The flint was chipped, but it would do. She slung her father's bullet pouch over her shoulder, adjusted the powder horn, and walked toward the firelight where the elders still spoke. They all stopped when she appeared. "Girl," said Emery Madsen, the one with the long white beard. "We're deciding on the hunting order." "I already decided," she said. One of the others scoffed. "You can't go alone again. You're burning powder like it grows on trees." "I'm not asking," Sarah said, calm. "You got men too weak to walk half a mile. You got mothers nursing newborns with nothing in their breasts. I still got legs. I still got eyes. I ain't afraid to go alone." "She thinks being brave is the same as being smart," muttered another. Sarah said nothing. She just turned and walked into the darkness, leaving them blinking in the firelight. She walked for hours, past the last of the wagons, past the line where anyone dared scout. She climbed the slope toward what had once been a game trail. No moon, just stars. just wind. The forest creaked like old wood settling, and far in the distance a cry, a coyote maybe, or worse. She didn't stop, didn't sleep, didn't slow down until the sun broke pale over the ridge and lit a vast open stretch below, frozen creek bed, willow clusters, rock outcroppings. That's when she saw the tracks, fresh, big, elk, 3, maybe 4. She crouched low, fingered the powder horn. Her hands were trembling. Her belly screamed at her, hollow and hot, but she ignored it. She slid down the slope, 1 foot at a time. Not fast, not loud. Her eyes followed the prints through the brush, through the frost. A tuft of fur clung to a pine branch ahead. She was close. Then she saw it. A bull elk, massive, crown of antlers wide as a man's outstretched arms. It stood between 2 rocks, turning its head slightly to sniff the wind. Sarah knelt. She set the hawken gently against her shoulder, aimed. The powder in the pan sparked. Click, no fire. She hadn't checked the flint well enough. The priming powder was damp. The elk's head snapped toward her. Its eyes locked to hers. 1 second, 2, then it bolted, crashing through the brush like a storm of hooves and panic. "No!" Sarah whispered, scrambling to reset. She tore open the pouch, new flint, dry powder. But by the time she loaded again, it was gone. She sat in the dirt, heart slamming, throat dry. She wanted to cry, but she didn't. She couldn't afford the salt. She followed the tracks again, all morning, all day. She didn't stop, not even when her legs buckled, not even when snowflakes started drifting through the treetops like falling ash. Her father had once told her, if you get close once, you'll get close again. Elk don't run forever. And then, nearing dusk, she saw it again. Not the bull, but a smaller one, young, less muscle, standing in a clearing near a low stream, drinking. She raised the rifle. No shaking, no sound. The shot cracked across the mountainside like thunder. The elk collapsed mid-step. Sarah dropped to her knees. She whispered, "Thank you." Then she began to dress the kill with hands blistered from cold and joy tangled with grief. The meat was heavy, too much to carry at once. She built a sled from pine branches, lashed them with her own shawl, and began the long, slow haul back toward the wagon train. And that's when she heard the voices behind her. Not people, wolves, circling, watching, waiting, and she was alone in the dark again. The cold didn't bother her anymore, not in the way it should have. The tips of her fingers were stiff as carved bone, her cheeks burned, and each breath puffed out in a ragged mist. But her mind had drifted somewhere past the pain, somewhere mechanical. 1 foot dragged, 1 pushed. The pine branch sled scraped across snow-dusted rock, blood trailing behind her in a smear of red that steamed in the chill. The elk weighed too much. She'd only managed to butcher a third of it before the light faded and the howling began. The wolves weren't close yet, not close enough to see, but she knew the sounds. Her father had told her what came next. A single howl first, lone scout, then another, farther off, then the chorus. It was the chorus that meant they'd made their choice. They'd follow, they'd wait, they'd test the strength of the thing that bled. The sled creaked behind her as she descended the slope. The wind cut harder the lower she got, racing up the gulch like it had a grudge. Trees began to thicken again, offering cover but not comfort. Her hands were too raw to keep grip on the rope lash for long. She tore strips from her shirt, tied them around her palms, and kept pulling. Every now and then, she looked back. The trail she'd made, deep, wide, stinking of meat and blood, was an invitation. They would come. She had only 1 shot left in the rifle, 1 powder charge, 1 lead ball. If she missed, no, she wouldn't. But if it came to it, she wouldn't waste it on a beast, not unless it was already in her throat. An hour passed. The stars blinked open above like cold, distant eyes. Snow dusted down again, soft and slow. Her feet found rhythm even as her knees wobbled with exhaustion. And when she crested the ridge that overlooked the flat scrubland, where the wagon train lay hidden in the valley, she nearly collapsed with relief. But that relief shattered the moment she saw no fires, no smoke, no movement. The wagons were there. She could just barely make out their pale shapes in the snow, but no lanterns, no glow of life, just shapes, silent and still. Her stomach dropped. Something was wrong. She left the sled, just dropped it mid-trail and took off downhill, sliding through brush, boots skidding on loose shale. Her legs gave out once, twice, but she caught herself. She made the last quarter-mile in a half-run, lungs burning, rifle tight in her hands. She hit the edge of camp at a full sprint, then stopped. A figure rose from behind one of the wagons, rifle raised. "Stop right there," a voice barked. "Name yourself." It was Emery Matson. His beard was frosted stiff, his eyes wide. Behind him, 3 others stood, guns drawn, pale faces drawn tighter than deer hide. "It's me," Sarah gasped. "Sarah Kent," Emery squinted. "That you?" "Yes," she said. "I got meat. I got—" Another voice, softer, broke in. "She's back? She's really back?" Then more heads appeared. From wagons, from behind canvas, ragged, gaunt figures stepping into the frozen light. Dozens of them, like ghosts returning to flesh, faces sunken but alive. "Where were the fires?" she asked. "Put 'em out," Emery said. "Didn't want to draw eyes. Raiders been seen 2 ridges over. Maybe Sioux, maybe whites. Don't matter." Sarah swallowed hard. She pointed back toward the rise. "I got elk, fresh, back up there, dragged what I could." For a moment no one moved. Then someone laughed, not at her, at the joy of it. "Elk?" a voice said. "You're joking? She's got elk!" Another cried out. Within minutes, men were running past her, stumbling over themselves to reach the sled. Others dropped to their knees in prayer. Some simply wept. Sarah didn't move. Her hands were shaking too hard. Then a hand touched her shoulder. It was her younger brother, Ben. "You did it," he whispered. She nodded. "Only brought a third of it. The rest's back up the mountain. But we'll get it," he said. "We'll bring it all down. All of it," and they did. By the time the sun rose again, the whole train smelled of blood and smoke and boiling fat. Fires roared, knives clinked, women bustled. For once there was no arguing about rations or order. Even Emery Madsen gave her a slow nod across the fire, lifting a strip of roast meat in salute. They ate, not in celebration, but in survival, silent, methodical. No one spoke more than necessary. They chewed, swallowed, passed portions to the weakest, rewrapped what could be stored. But inside that silence was something else, a shift. No one said the mocking words anymore. Not that day, not the next. Not after she went back and brought down the second elk with a single shot to the heart. Not after she taught her brother Ben how to follow sign, how to stay low in the brush. Not after she showed 2 of the younger boys how to field dress a kill without wasting the fat or damaging the organs. They didn't call her a hunter. They called her the girl with the rifle. But the tone had changed. Even so, winter pressed on. 3 weeks later, another storm swept the high valley, and the trail became ice. Oxen slipped, wagons tipped. One woman lost a child when the wind snapped a tree limb straight through their canvas. Food ran low again, though Sarah hunted every 3rd day. Her shoulders ached, her hands were cracked. She had taken to sleeping with the Hawken rifle across her chest, fingers curled around the wood like it was part of her body. Then one morning she rose before dawn as usual, readying her gear, and stopped. A horse was missing, not wandered off, gone. Saddle prints, 2 sets of boots. Small, light, she counted heads. 2 boys gone. Tommy Brewer and Caleb Rowe, 9 and 11, gone without a word. She ran straight to Emery, who was chewing hardtack like it offended him. "They're gone," she said. "What?" "2 boys. Took a horse. Probably went looking for game," Emery cursed. "Fools. They'll freeze out there. They'll die out there," Emery snapped, "and we'll die chasing them." But Sarah was already moving. She followed the tracks. They ran straight west, up the slope, past the ridgeline. No attempt to hide, no caution, just childish confidence in the saddle. She cursed under her breath as she went, snow crunching beneath her boots. Hours passed. Then she found the horse, tied to a branch, alive, shivering, no boys. Tracks led farther west, then split. One set circled around. The other, deeper, slower, led toward a dense thicket. She followed and found them. Caleb was crouched beside Tommy, who lay on the ground, face white, lips blue. "I told him not to climb the rock," Caleb cried. "But he slipped. His leg. He can't walk." Sarah dropped to her knees. Tommy's ankle was twisted grotesquely. His body was shaking from cold, but he was conscious. She looked at them both. "You're idiots," she whispered. Then she took off her coat and wrapped it around Tommy. The wind howled. They wouldn't make it back before dark. She knew it, so she made a choice. She sent Caleb back with the horse and a marker flag. She carried Tommy, all 4 miles, on her back. The weight nearly broke her. Her knees buckled more than once. Her vision blurred. Her shoulders screamed. But she made it, just after dusk. Her knees gave out 10 feet from the campfires. She fell face first, still clutching the boy. They lifted him off her back, carried her to the fireside. And when she woke, 3 hours later, wrapped in every blanket they owned, Emery Madsen was sitting there, staring at her like he'd never seen her before. He cleared his throat. "You saved him," he said. "Could have let him die." Sarah didn't answer. He hesitated. Then, "You're not just the girl with the rifle anymore." He stood. "Come to council tomorrow? You've earned your say." Sarah watched the flames dance. She didn't smile. She just closed her eyes and slept like she hadn't in months. The next morning, snow fell as thick and steady as sifted flour, blanketing the camp in white silence. The oxen stood motionless beneath the trees, breath fogging in the air, ribs visible, tails barely flicking. No one spoke unless necessary. The firewood pile had shrunk to near nothing. The elk meat, even rationed, wouldn't last more than another week, 2 at most. Yet as Sarah Kent stepped from her family's wagon, her legs still stiff and her shoulders bruised from carrying Tommy. There was no longer the same look in the other's eyes. They made space for her now when she passed. They nodded, subtle and silent, but they nodded. The mocking tones had vanished, not because they liked her, not even because they respected her, but because they knew now they needed her. That morning, as she approached the fire ring where the elders met, no longer needing to ask permission, Emery Madsen stood and didn't interrupt her. Neither did the others. She took a seat, a small log, still wet with ice. She said nothing, just waited. It was Emery who finally broke the silence. "We need a plan," he said, rubbing his eyes with the heel of one hand. "Another snow like this, and we won't make it through the pass. We got just enough food to limp through, but only if we move now. Oxen can't pull through drifts that deep," muttered one of the others, a man named Calvin Brigg. "Wheels'll freeze solid. We'll snap axles on the first ridge. Then we'll burn the wagons," another spat. "What else? Carry what we can? Leave what we can't." Sarah stared at the fire, eyes unmoving. "No," she said softly. The others turned. "No?" Calvin raised an eyebrow. "And what's your better plan then? You move now, you lose people," she said. "You move now, you lose more than wagons. You lose your sick, you lose your children." "We stay," Emery said. "We lose to cold and hunger." "You stay," Sarah said. "We hunt." A pause. "There ain't no game left out there," Calvin scoffed. "You got lucky twice, girl. Don't make the mistake of thinking Providence rides on your shoulder." "It wasn't luck," she said evenly. "It was tracking. It was knowing where the herds would flee when they caught our scent. It was patience. I've been mapping their trails, quietly, every trip I've made. I've been watching them push farther north, higher up. They're gathering." "For what?" Emery asked. "To move. A migration. I saw it once before when I was small. Elk, deer, even bison sometimes, just before a hard freeze. They know when the worst is coming. They gather, they move." Calvin laughed, a dry, humorless noise. "So we follow the animals, like beasts ourselves?" Sarah looked at him. "No," she said. "I follow them, alone. I'll go ahead of the herd. I'll bring back what I can. If I'm right, there'll be enough for all of us. And if you're wrong," Sarah stood, "then you bury me and move on." She didn't wait for agreement. She turned and left. That night, while the others huddled close to the last decent fire, Sarah readied her pack. The bullet pouch had only 6 left, powder half full, no room for mistakes now. She wrapped her father's long knife in hide, tightened her boots with fresh leather thongs, and slipped her arm through the sling of the Hawken rifle like she'd done 100 times before. Ben, her brother, tried to come with her. "You'll slow me down," she told him. "I'm faster than Caleb," he said. She didn't answer, just looked at him until he dropped his eyes. "You stay here," she said. "Help with water. Watch the little ones. Keep them warm." He nodded, not happy, but proud. She left before sunrise. The snow was deeper now, up past her calves, but crusted at the top. Her boots punched through with every step, slowing her, grinding her strength down hour by hour. But she pushed north, following the ridgelines she'd memorized, skirting the edge of wind-blasted peaks where the trees grew sparse and the land opened wide. By mid-afternoon she saw the signs. Droppings, fresh, prints in snow, a dusting of shed fur caught on bark. Then the herd itself, far off across a white bowl of earth rimmed by black pines. Dozens of them, elk mostly, but mixed in, mule deer, even a shaggy bison cow with a half-grown calf limping beside her. It was a migration. She watched for hours, unmoving, hiding in the lee of a dead spruce. Wind howled overhead but left her untouched in her hollow. Her fingers were numb, lips cracked, but her eyes stayed fixed on one thing. A young elk, broad chest, alone from the rest, lame in one leg, strayed too far from the herd. She waited until the creature turned broadside. She raised the rifle, breathed out, and squeezed. The crack echoed. The elk staggered, kicked, and fell. The rest of the herd scattered, thundering across the snow. But Sarah didn't flinch. She was already moving, already sliding down the slope with practiced feet. Hawkins slung across her back, knife drawn. It was a clean kill. She began to dress it. Then she saw movement at the edge of the trees. She froze. Not wolves, not animals, men, 2 of them, rifles drawn. Not scouts from the wagon train, not locals either. She ducked low, heart pounding. They stepped forward, cautiously, like they weren't sure what they'd heard. "Sounded close," one said. The other grunted. They were looking for the source of the gunshot. Raiders, not soldiers, not trappers, not from any settlement she knew. If they found her, they'd take the meat, maybe the rifle, maybe more. She backed slowly, keeping the kill between her and the sound. Then a twig snapped behind her. She spun. A third man, closer, younger, thin-faced, greasy hair, holding a pistol that trembled slightly. "Don't move," he said. Sarah didn't. He stepped closer. "I said." She threw the knife, not at him, at the snowbank beside his face. He flinched, turned. She tackled him. They rolled, her elbow driving into his chest, his pistol discharging wide. She grabbed the Hawken, aimed. The others came running at the sound, shouting. She didn't fire. She ran, not blindly, not wildly. She ran downhill, through dense brush, between rocks, fast, silent, the way her father taught her. The Hawken bounced on her shoulder, and her lungs burned with each breath. But she didn't stop. She heard shouts, pursuit, two behind her, maybe all three, gaining. She knew she couldn't outrun them on foot forever, so she led them where she wanted, to the ice field. She hit the edge at a run, a wide frozen stretch of a dried-up creek bed. No cover, but beneath the snow, a sheet of brittle ice and a hidden ravine. She crossed, light-footed, remembering where it thinned. Let them follow. She stopped just beyond the edge, waited. The first man came bounding over the rise, fired once. The shot went wide. She stepped left, deeper onto solid ground. The second man skidded to a halt beside him. The third was behind them, breathless. All three advanced. She raised the rifle. They hesitated. Then the younger one, the one she'd tackled, took another step forward, right over the thinnest part. The ice groaned, then cracked. With a scream, the man dropped from view, vanishing in an instant. The other two scrambled back, horrified, shouting. One dropped to his belly and tried to crawl after him, but the ice cracked again. They fell back, retreating. Sarah didn't move, didn't fire, didn't need to. She turned and vanished into the trees. Hours later, long after the sun dipped behind the mountains, she returned to the elk. Still there, still whole. She lashed the meat, built a drag sled, marked the route. She wouldn't carry all of it back. Not this trip, but she'd take enough. She returned to camp at dawn, face frostbitten, eyes swollen with exhaustion, dragging meat again, and this time no one doubted. Emery met her at the edge. "What happened?" he asked, seeing her bruised lip, the red scrape down one cheek. "Raiders," she said. He stiffened. I handled it." He blinked. "You're bleeding," she shrugged. "So's the meat." He laughed, loud, long, the first real laugh anyone had heard in a month. Sarah didn't smile. She just pulled the sled closer, and the camp once again lit with fire. By mid-January, the wagons had gone quiet again, not from death, but from something just as dangerous. Hope, a strange, fragile hope that wrapped itself around the camp like thin smoke. It hovered in the way people smiled without meaning to, how they stood longer in the sun when it came, how their hands worked slower over the butchering, and their eyes drifted past the treetops to the ridgelines beyond. Hope had grown dangerous because it made people believe the worst was behind them, that the meat would last longer than it ever did, that the snow would thaw sooner than it ever would. Hope made men lazy, made them reckless, made them forget how close death still sat. Sarah saw it in everything. The way Emery Madsen leaned heavier on his stick and let the younger men double-check the watches. The way mothers began loosening the rags around their children's ankles to let the cold air touch skin again. Even Ben, her brother, the one who had once sat silent beside her during fireless nights, had started saying things like, "Maybe we'll make it by March," or "They say California's green year-round." And yet food stores were down to 2 sacks of dried marrow, a few bones boiling for broth, and half a smoked elk shoulder. The last of the rendered tallow had gone into candles. There was nothing more to burn but planks of the wagons themselves. Still they waited. Still they hoped. Sarah didn't. She woke before anyone else, strapped on the Hawken, and walked, each morning, farther than the last. Not because she expected more game, there hadn't been a fresh track in days, but because she didn't know how to do anything else. The snow had thickened, hard, uneven crusts on top, powder underneath. The wind didn't howl now. It whispered, low and dry, like a warning too quiet to understand. She returned one evening with nothing but frostbite on her fingers, and a single squirrel she'd clubbed when it panicked in the underbrush. They cut it into 9 pieces. That night she sat with Emery and 3 others by the lowest burning fire they dared to keep. They said nothing. No one wanted to say the thing everyone already knew. They were out of time. Emery stirred the embers with the end of a broken rifle barrel. "We need a decision," he said. Sarah didn't look up. "There's a settlement south of here," Calvin Briggs said slowly. "I knew a man who said there was one. Old army outpost. Said they kept stores for winter. Grain, maybe sugar, maybe more." "Maybe don't fill a belly," Emery muttered. Calvin leaned forward. "Then let me go. You'll freeze." "I'll take a horse," Sarah cut in. "There's no horse to spare. I'll take mine." "You're not fast enough, not now." "Then who?" Calvin snapped. "You? You can't make every decision, girl." "She's the only one who can survive it," Emery said. Silence. Sarah stood, quietly, slowly. "How far?" she asked. "Maybe 4 days," Calvin said. "If the trail's not iced over." 5 there, 5 back, Emery muttered. Too long. I'll do it in 3. No, Emery said. Even you can't do that. I'll try, Sarah said. I'll do what I can. And that was the end of it. No vote, no talk. They all knew. The next morning, she left, alone, again. But this time, she did not carry the Hawken alone. She wore her father's rifle on her back, and strapped to her side, slung across her coat, was a second rifle, smaller, shorter barreled, a gift from Emery. One of the last guns not stripped for parts or wood. 2 pouches of shot, 1 powder horn. No meat, just water and prayers. The South Trail was harder than she remembered, iced over in places where sun hadn't touched the earth in weeks, and mud thick in others, where meltwater pooled beneath rotten snow. She slipped 3 times the first day. Once she went down hard, opening her palm on a jagged rock, blood slick and hot in the cold, but she did not stop. The second day she saw birds. Ravens first, circling low, then a hawk. That meant something dead nearby. She found it by noon, a mule deer half eaten. Scavengers had picked it clean. The marrow in the bones was frozen solid. She took nothing, no time. She climbed a ridge that evening and saw, far across the open stretch of lowland, a curl of smoke, a chimney, not much, but something. She reached it by sundown. The building was smaller than she expected. Stone base, timber top, half sunken into the slope like it had tried to hide from winter. The door was closed. A scrap of fabric fluttered from the eaves. She knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Still silence. Then a voice low and old. "Go away. I need food," Sarah said. "Then you're out of luck. I have nothing to trade." "Even less reason to open?" She waited, then said, "There's a wagon train, 22 people. Freezing, starving. I need enough food to get them through the pass." Nothing. Then the sound of a bolt sliding. The door cracked open. An eye appeared. Then a face. An old man. Bearded, scarred, missing part of one ear. "You're the hunter," he said. "What?" "They said a girl was hunting up north. Said she shot elk clean through the heart. Didn't believe 'em. Believe it now," he grunted. "Open the door wider." "Come in." She did. It smelled like salt and smoke inside. Jerky hung from beams. Grain sacks in the corner. Cans stacked near a stove. He poured her water, watched her drink, then said, "If I give you what you want, what stops you from sending others to rob me later?" "I won't." "You could." "I won't," she repeated. He studied her face, long, hard. Then he stood, began loading sacks. By morning she left with a sled piled high. Salt pork, beans, cornmeal, dried apples, even coffee. He gave her a final look. "You'll need to shoot straight," he said. "Why?" "Settlers been robbed 3 times this winter. Raiders, desperate ones, not Comanche, not Mexicans, our kind. Hungry." She nodded, and then she left. She moved fast, too fast. The sled slowed her. The snow thickened again on the 3rd day. Then she saw them. Men, 2, walking upright, 1 on horseback, too clean to be trappers, too calm to be lost. They saw her. She didn't wait. She dropped to her knees, leveled the short rifle and fired. 1 dropped, the others dove. She rolled, pulled the Hawken, reloaded fast. They shouted, demanded she surrender. She didn't. The second came at her. She dropped him too. The third ran, didn't look back. She didn't chase, didn't search them, just dragged the sled faster. She reached the camp near dusk. Ben saw her first, ran shouting. Others followed. A dozen hands helped her drag the sled in. They opened the bags like children at Christmas. Emery Madsen sat down on the snow and just stared. Then he wept. Sarah didn't speak. She just handed the last sack to her mother, then collapsed. She slept for nearly 2 days. Her body had stopped before her mind had, and when she awoke, drenched in sweat, lips cracked from fever, toes blistered from the cold. They told her they'd thought she might not wake at all, but she had, and when her eyes opened, there was stew boiling on the fire, the sound of a child laughing somewhere behind the wagons, and the unmistakable scent of coffee drifting through the thin air. Sarah sat up slowly, one arm clutching her ribs. Her muscles screamed. Her right hand was wrapped tight in oiled cloth, her fingertips raw and cracked beneath. Ben sat beside her, a bowl of beans in his lap. "You were gone 5 days, he said quietly. "They thought you were dead. Some of them did anyway." "Not you," she rasped. He shook his head. "I figured the snow would break before you did." She smiled, or tried to. It came out crooked, more exhaustion than joy. Across the camp, Emery Madsen stood near the fire, hands behind his back, watching her. He didn't speak, didn't wave, just nodded. That was all. The mood in camp had changed again. Not just relief, not just survival, but belief in her, in what she'd done. They ate sparingly, still, but it was food, real food, and the children no longer cried themselves to sleep from hunger. The elders met twice daily now to chart the final push through the pass, and no one raised a voice when Sarah spoke. She was not part of the council. She was its edge, the one they turned to when choices became dangerous. She never asked for the role. She never accepted it aloud, but it was hers now, all the same. But the snow didn't let up, and 2 nights after she returned, tragedy struck again. A fire. It started in the Matthews wagon. A stray ember maybe, or a child kicking too close to the coals. It caught the oilcloth, ran straight through the bedding, and in a matter of seconds the entire back quarter of the wagon was ablaze. The mother screamed. The father kicked the door open, but the youngest boy, 6 years old, was trapped behind the crates. Sarah heard the cries before she saw the flames. She was already sprinting across the camp when the roof of the wagon began to collapse inward. The father tried to go back in. Emery stopped him. "You'll burn alive." "I don't care." Sarah didn't hesitate. She grabbed a wet blanket from the snow and threw it over herself. Then she ran, straight into the wagon's front entrance. Smoke poured from the cracks. Her vision went black instantly. She dropped to her knees, crawling. "Jack!" she screamed. No answer. She moved by memory, by guesswork, by blind hope. Then, fingers touched something soft. A boot. She yanked. The boy was limp, dead, no time to check. She wrapped him in the blanket, pulled him back over her shoulder, and staggered through the fire. The air outside was freezing, but to her it felt like heaven. She stumbled out coughing, half blind, dragging the boy behind her. Hands grabbed them both. Someone poured snow over her back. Another cut the blanket off. Jack coughed, alive, soot-covered, scared, but alive. The camp roared. They gathered around, no words, just eyes. Some cried, some dropped to their knees. No one asked why she'd done it. They knew, and that was the night something unspoken happened. No more murmurs behind her back, no more doubt in their eyes, just reverence. The word spread, from one wagon to the next, from child to elder. They began to say it in different ways, in quiet tones. "Saved us more than once. Never seen a woman shoot like that. She sees things others don't. The mountain listens to her." By the next morning, they were calling her the Shot. Just that, nothing else needed. That same morning, Emery called for a gathering. All wagons, all voices. They stood in a half circle around the old fire ring, feet crunching snow, breath curling in the still air. Emery turned to Sarah. "We're leaving tomorrow," he said. "Snow's thinning along the west trail. If we don't take the pass now, we'll lose the chance." No one disagreed. He looked back at the group. "We go light. We burn 2 more wagons. Carry what we need, but we go." They nodded. Emery glanced at Sarah again. "You'll ride front if you're able." She blinked. "What?" "You lead." A pause. "Emery, you earned it," the others murmured. Agreement, expectation, not a ceremony, not a declaration, just truth. Sarah swallowed, then nodded once. She led them out the next day. 24 souls, shivering and squinting into the wind, following the trail she marked ahead of them. The sky hung low, grey and swollen, but it did not snow that day. The sun showed its face before noon. The oxen moved slower, but they moved. Children sat bundled in hides. Women held their breath at every turn. They crested the first rise by sundown, and there, on the other side, clear trail, a path winding down into the lower valleys, no drifts, no rockfalls, just frozen dirt and a line of scattered deer tracks. The hard part was not over, but the worst was. They made it through the pass in 3 more days, into warmer country, into land where trees stood with green still on them, and rivers ran beneath broken ice. They reached the first trading post 2 days after that. Muddy, weak, alive. The storemaster wept when he saw them, said they'd been marked for dead 3 weeks ago, said he'd heard stories from trappers about a girl with a rifle chasing elk through blizzards and shooting raiders clean through. Sarah didn't correct him. She just took the supplies he offered and made sure everyone else ate before she did. By spring, they'd reached California, a smaller group than had left Missouri, but whole in the ways that mattered. Sarah didn't talk much after that. She built her own cabin outside the main camp near the timberline, where the elk still wandered and the birds called out in morning fog. She never married, never asked for a title, but when new wagon trains arrived, thin, wide-eyed, scared, they were told to find her. And when one such group came up starving one fall, a mother holding a child so weak he couldn't cry, they found Sarah near her fire, skinning a deer she'd brought down 2 hours earlier. The mother tried to offer her coins. Sarah shook her head. "You feed your child first," she said, "but no one's going hungry if I can help it." And that winter, as others built fires, burned logs, and sharpened axes for warmth and protection, Sarah kept the meat coming, hawk-eyed, quiet, tireless. Because once they had laughed at her for learning to hunt, now they survived because of it. And her name, her real one, Sarah Kent, began to spread, quietly, fiercely, like fire in dry grass.